Welcome to the Synergy Podcast, the space where we redefine how we move, heal, and experience our bodies. My name is Arianna Montanari, yoga synergy teacher, beekeeper, and founder of mini-serie natural body products. Sustainability in all forms is the thread I have been following and nourishing for over 20 years. Here we break free from the unspoken rules that tell us how we should move and feel. Here we long for deep reconnection with nature, with ourselves, through intuitive movement, self-care, and self-awareness. We explore what it truly means to work with the body instead of pushing against it, to understand it rather than criticize it. So whether you're a yogi, a seeker, or simply curious about stepping into a more liberated way of living, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Synergy Podcast, to the second of the mini-series of episodes that Simon Borg-Olivier and I are creating. My name is Arianna Montanari and I'm your host. And Simon, it's a great pleasure to have you back. Welcome.
Arianna, it's my deep pleasure to be here again with you. Thank you very much for doing these chats. We love it so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a great way to give people an insight of the depth of the teachings that you share, of the knowledge that you have gathered over decades of doing what you're doing. So thank you.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Simon, last week we closed the episode naming the 12 ways of moving blood through the body.
Yeah.
And I would love for us to go back there. So to pick up where we left off, exploring the functioning and functions of blood flow in our bodies and see how then it's connected to the breath. So we're going to start from blood flow and then kind of connect, because I think it's we come from this view of seeing one system per se. So we talk only about blood flow or blood, and then the breath is something else, and digestive system is something else. Reproductive system is separate, but we really need to kind of go back to putting all the pieces together, synergy, right? How all these systems actually work together.
Yeah, actually, I think about this a lot. Just before we get to the whole blood flow thing, a very popular thing in the world today is fascia. Everyone talks about fascia.
Yeah.
But of course, the system we're using has been working with fascia for the last 35 years because there is this, a mythology that muscles are separate, but actually all the muscles are joined in the body via the fascia. So it's only our Western reductionist mind that says muscle is separate to connective tissue, which is separate to joint and bone. Everything's totally interconnected. So the way we're working, especially by moving actively from one position to the next, you're always stimulating a reciprocal reflex with the muscle that takes you into a posture, which inhibits a stretch reflex. And then sometimes you intentionally want a stretch reflex to initiate a stretch reflex activation of the muscles next to it, because if you tighten any one muscle, then the fascia around it will connect to every other muscle in the body. So just by tightening one muscle, you get a chain of activations all down the body. And a lot of what we're doing depends on muscle activation rather than just muscle relaxation, and also muscle regulation. So by accessing the reflexes and through this control of muscles and fascia joined together, the whole bridging of all the nervous system with the musculoskeletal system and the cardiovascular system, you get this very, very special looped system, and everything works very, very well. But having this notion that everything is separate, you get confused and things don't make sense. So you said, let's go back to the idea of the different ways to move blood through the body. First of all, I reiterate what I said last time. I think that we often think of blood flow and breathing as two separate things, but in the world of Indian yoga, they talk about prana, and many people think prana is like chi, it's like energy, and it's to do with the breath. But in India, they say there are 5 types of prana, and one of them, the one in the chest, is called prana. But the one below the diaphragm, below the rib cage, is when you breathe into the abdomen and your abdomen expands, that's not air going into your lower abdomen, that's intra-abdominal pressure, which is called aparna. And so pressure is a type of prana, and the prana, which is the biggest in the body, the largest, is called vyana, and that's your blood pressure. So actually the presence of increased amounts of blood in your body means increased prana. And so there is a definite relationship that most people miss. And so what I always say, and you and I say together, is that we're trying to encourage the flow of prana, good energy and loving information, which is healthy blood flow with a low heart rate through the body. But how can blood flow so effortlessly without the heart racing? And that's where I come into saying that there are 11 other ways other than the heart to move blood through the body. And if you like, I'll go through them quickly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It could be a whole 2-hour lecture with practical interactions, but
I know.
very quickly, if people want to do a little bit with me now, if you take your arms up in the air and just relax your hands, so my hands are actually relaxed. When you do that, you'll feel that blood will instantly drain from your hands. Your hands will feel lighter within a few moments if you're relaxed.
Yeah.
Now, take the hands and rest them by the side of the body. So then the hands are just hanging limply by the side. And then you feel within a few moments the hands get heavy. So blood will flow very effectively with gravity. So one exercise you can do if you want a really relaxed exercise, which allows increase in blood with minimal effort, is simply take one arm up softly, relax it, wait 3 seconds, and then bring that arm down, bring the opposite arm up. And be as soft as you can. Allow 3 seconds or 4 for the blood to drain from the top hand, and then bring it down. And as the hand goes down, within 3 or 4 seconds, the lower hand fills with blood, upper hand drains of blood. And of course, the blood doesn't go, so change hands, the blood won't go just from right hand to left hand. It has to circulate through the whole body. So this simple practice of taking 3 seconds to oscillate one way up, one way down, actually starts to pump blood through the body with minimal effort. So release for a moment. That's actually a very powerful exercise. And so when you're practicing your yoga or qigong or movement, you can be super soft, and just from gravity alone, blood will flow very effectively. Another movement of blood through the body mechanism is called a musculoskeletal pump. So if your arms are up in the air and they're relaxed, and I'm not taking the arms up fully so you can see them, but say your arms are leaned back a bit so your arm is up. If you take your arm up again and then open and close the palm. So as you open and close the palm like that, then that's actually pulling blood and pushing blood. So now stop, relax your hands, and you'll feel that the blood once again drains from the hands. So that it's draining with gravity, but if you open and close the hands and create a musculoskeletal pump and then stop, it takes a few seconds for the blood to drain, meaning that pumping was actually pulling and pushing blood away. So the musculoskeletal pump is another very important movement system for moving blood through the body. And they often use it in airplanes, where the risk is if you're sitting too long in airplanes, you might get deep vein thromboses. So they get you, and they suggest with a camera and the television on the plane, get up out of your seats and stand and do heel raises, up and down with your heels. And that turns the calf muscles on and off and has the same effect of pumping blood away from the legs. Then another mechanism of moving blood effortlessly through the body without the heart is using what we call the respiratory pump. So with the respiratory pump, if you take one example, take the first 3 fingers of one hand to the radial or thumb side of the other hand, and you feel the heart. And once you've found your pulse, relax your pelvic floor, sit with your abdomen relaxed, pelvic floor relaxed, or if you're standing, bend the knees just slightly and drop the hips. And now slowly breathe in to your expanded abdomen and see if you can also expand the chest without causing tension. And then for about a count of 6, start to let the air out softly without tension, without squeezing, just especially drop the chest down. Then keeping the abdomen and pelvic floor soft, expand and breathe in slowly. You can fill up your lower back and upper back. You can fill up the chest and abdomen more. And then slowly let the air out again for about of 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you can spend up to a minute doing this, but what some people would have noticed already is in a healthy body, the heart rate goes up when you breathe in, heart rate goes down when you breathe out. This will not happen for people who have lost natural diaphragmatic breathing, people who have no control of their chest muscles. But if you do a natural, complete breath, inhaling from the base upwards, then the expansion that comes by your breathing muscles, the diaphragm moving down and the chest moving up. So imagine one hand is my diaphragm, one hand is my chest. When I pull them apart, there's a suction. And that suction, when you pull your hands apart, represents the suction that happens when you inhale. It's the suction that pulls air into your nose, but at the same time, that suction is pulling more blood into the heart. And so then more blood going into the heart makes the heart pump faster. And then when you exhale, less suction is going into your chest, so that less blood comes into the heart, goes slower. So using your muscles of breathing, and this is just one way you can use the muscles of breathing, that will also pump blood through the body. And up until the turn of the 19th century, many doctors thought that the heart wasn't actually the pump, it was rather a valve, and the lungs are the pump of blood through the body. So there's still that notion coming back now. You can see it has an effect. When you understand how to use the transverse abdominis, these muscles of the lower abdomen moving like a wave, then you can also regulate blood flow and massage internal organs using these muscles. Then there's a fourth method to moving blood other than the heart, and we call it the postural pump. And the postural pump is any posture where you've got one part of the body more compressed and ideally tense, with another part of the body lengthened and relaxed. That will cause the blood to be pushed away from the high pressure region and pulled toward the low pressure region. Now this works better if you're not doing passive poses, because often passive poses, you'll be lengthening one muscle, but it becomes tense via a stretch reflex. So tension pushes away blood, relaxation pulls blood, lengthening pulls blood towards you, pulls blood toward that region, but compressing or shortening pushes blood away. The ideal is to have one section which is lengthened and relaxed, and one section compressed and tense. And the compressed tense section pushes blood away, lengthened relaxed section pulls blood towards. Most active movements will do that. So for example, if you even take one arm to the opposite shoulder, then without touching your shoulder, you'll feel the inner armpit is firm and the outer armpit is relaxed. And this will start to move blood through the body. After a few moments, you feel warmer. As opposed to if you take the opposite elbow and use your hand to pull, you'll feel a stretch, but there's no change in blood flow. If you take the same position and pull with your arm, not using the other hand, wait for a few moments and test your inner armpit. The inner armpit is shortened and compressed, that pushes blood. Outer armpit lengthened and relaxed, that pulls blood. And this causes blood to get moved. But also, when you now pull the leg elbow in further, you don't feel a stretch. So these methods we're using to move actively into poses cause blood to flow without the heart racing. It also causes the possibility to relax muscles and to lengthen them without stretch, and to activate muscles without having to think of tensing them. Because often if you tell someone tighten any muscle, like if you say to someone tighten your biceps, they can do it, but actually they're tightening the triceps as well. And I invite anyone to try this. So make a bulging biceps, feel it, and then touch your triceps. Now relax the biceps. Notice triceps go soft, tighten the biceps, and the under of your arm, your triceps goes tense. This is the reality. If you tell anyone in a Pilates class, a yoga class, an exercise class, tighten any muscle in the body, they will, but other things will become tight. And often we joke that if you say to people in class, everyone tighten your anus, everyone's face tenses up as well, because that's what happens. It's very difficult to actually tense a muscle voluntarily for most people. So most people make very loose approximations and tense everything, and that just blocks blood.
And I think also, for instance, well, two things. For instance, while we try to move toes, I often do that in classes, then the hands are also moving just because it's all connected, but also, for instance, pointing feet. Right, you see often that in yoga practices, everybody's pointing feet, but pointing feet means that you're also pushing away blood from the toes, right? So it would be better to...
If they're pointing with their toes and plantar flexing as well, it can be also pushing blood away. It's for a little bit. It all affects blood flow. But then another method, apart from the postural pump, we call the co-activation pump, where co-activation is the simultaneous tightening or activation of muscles on either side of a joint complex. In the world of Indian yoga, this is synonymous with the sound bandha. And so many people read Mr. Iyengar's book, Light on Yoga, saying there are three main bandhas, and Mula bandha, Uddiyana bandha, Jalandhara bandha. But the fact that he says three main ones indicate there are more as well. So you can find, for example, Mani bandha. Mani bandha is the co-activation or simultaneous tensing around the muscles around the wrist joint complex. Mani means hand or wrist actually. So if you make a closed fist, if you can feel your wrist, it's quite firm, but it's firming front and back of wrist. But if you spread the fingers like a banana hand, the wrist is just as firm front and back. Same muscles used in two different ways. The difference is, although the muscle feels just as hard whether you're spreading or gripping, when you spread your fingers, that will pull blood toward the hand. When you grip with your fingers, that will push blood away from the hand. And you can visibly see this on an infrared camera. I've got videos of where I put my hand out to the side, and you can see closed fist, hand goes colder. Spread fingers, hand goes warmer, and you'll feel it in the chest as a loss of heat from that part of the body. It's quite remarkable. So this is something which is very interesting. So this we call the co-activation pump. And you can make co-activation around each of the 9 main joint complexes: ankles, knees, hips, waist, chest, neck, shoulders, elbows, wrists. And of course, each region we call a bandha can be activated in a way which pushes blood or pulls blood. So 9 main bandhas, 2 opposing form, 18 different ways you can push and pull blood through the body using co-activation. Then another method of moving blood through the body is called a centripetal pump. Centripetal pump happens whenever you move any muscle or joint through a range of movement past a certain speed. So what happens is, even if you bend and straighten your elbow, so there's my elbow, I'm bending and straightening, and what you're seeing is my fingers are describing the arc of a circle. So all of our joints work in circles. And if you were to take something, and I'll take, for example, my sock. Oh, you can't see my sock, it's a bit too... I'll take a little piece of paper, for example, too dark, my sock, and I'll get my t-shirt. And so with a white t-shirt, you can see it's hanging, it's got no muscles in it. But if I take it and I spin it, it appears to straighten. So even though it's a hanging limp t-shirt, if I turn it in circles, then although there are no muscles in the t-shirt will start to straighten. So all the energy is being pushed from the center of the axis of rotation to the limb. And that rotation or centripetal forces become involved, or centrifugal forces. And that happens if you move your limbs past a certain speed. So it would happen to a certain extent when you're doing through things like salute to the sun, even when you're walking to a certain extent. You are using centripetal and centrifugal forces to move blood through the body. And you can maximize that in your practice. Then another method of moving blood through the body is called the external pressure pump. So for example, if you were to take the back of your hand and squeeze it with your fingers, and you can try that, then let go, there's a whiteness that's left afterwards. So if you were to massage yourself or massage someone else, then that's actually promoting blood flow. And so you can take your hands, for example, in your abdomen and push your fingers right into the abdomen. Then breathe into the abdomen. And then push your fingers deeper. You can squeeze with your fingers and thumb. And do this a few times. Keep the abdomen soft, breathing into the abdomen and then pushing the air out with your fingers. And breathing in the abdomen, push the air out with your fingers. And if you do it maybe a bit longer than this, but you can release and see, a few seconds later, this rush of warmth comes to your abdomen because you've pushed the blood away from a while, the stale blood. And when you release, fresh blood comes. And some people will experience a warmth in the abdomen after doing that. So you get a much stronger effect, of course, if you do Mayurasana, where you put your elbows in the abdomen and you balance on your hands. Many yoga postures, in other words, are actually doing self-massage for you. I mean, you might think that self-massage is not part of yoga or some traditional form, but actually many of the postures will make you touch one part to another and compress it. Then another one in a similar vein is called the external temperature pump. And so with the external temperature pump, if you take your fingers and you put them in cold water, if you put them in hot water, then the fingers start to heat up very quickly. And part of that is the blood rushing to that part to try and dissipate the heat. Right. So you can warm one part of the body with another part of the body by putting a cold part into a warm part. So for example, you can take, in a cold day, take your fingers under your armpit, the body will start to warm, more blood will come to the hands. Or in traditional Tibetan culture, instead of using the lotus posture to put one foot on the opposite thigh, they actually hook the toes of one leg into the calf and back of the knee of the other leg. So the calf is then warming the feet. And this is the not lotus, but siddhasana. And so this is the method they use in the snow to keep their feet warm. The feet are being warmed by the back of the knees. So an external temperature pump is also an important way of moving blood through. Then another one is the carbon dioxide pump. So when you breathe as little as possible and you start to retain more carbon dioxide than normal, the presence of carbon dioxide causes a more relaxed frame to the whole nervous system, which will help everything relax and many things in the body will flow more easily. But at the same time, the carbon dioxide promotes blood flow to the brain. It opens the vessels to the brain. So then by breathing less, you actually promote blood flow, especially to specific parts of the body like the brain, and calm the nervous system more. Up to a certain point. If you breathe less persistently, you'll probably die. But for most people in the beginning, the best way to breathe less is by not consciously trying to breathe more, which you see in many exercise and yoga classes. So then another way of moving blood through the body I call the anti-gravity pump. The anti-gravity pump is related to the way trees pull sap up from the roots. So, for many years it mystified biologists and engineers. How was it possible for the tree to suck liquid against the flow of gravity up the tubes? Whereas, almost everyone who's done scuba diving knows that if you have a long tube, at a certain length, up to maybe half a meter, maybe, you can suck air, you can go underwater, hold it like a snorkel and suck air. But if you go further under, you can't suck anything. And if you take a capillary, that's a long capillary, you can't suck anything. It's not possible to suck stuff up a tree. So for many years, they wondered, how's the water getting up the tree? And it comes not through suction, but a type of a pulley system. Because what happens is, in the roots of a tree, and I'm explaining tree because this is how the lungs and the kidneys work. They're the analogies in a tree. The roots will absorb water from the ground, and that water is low concentration. And low concentration, less solid, means lighter water. Then that water will come up to the top of the tree. I'll explain how in a moment. And the leaves transpire. Transpiration is the process of the leaves evaporating water through sunlight, etc. And so then whatever water is left in the leaves goes back down to the roots. I think they have them called xylem cells and phloem cells or something like this. The two roots, some come from the roots up, some come from the leaves down. And what happens is the water that leaves the leaves is heavy water. Why? Because a lot of it has gone away, it's evaporated. So any salt concentration becomes higher concentration. And then when the water gets back to the roots, it absorbs more water, becomes light water, less concentration. Now water, you've probably tried the experiment where you touch one drop of water to another, and one drop can pull another drop. So water is sticky. So when the heavy water is falling down, it's like a pulley system and it pulls the light water up. But this will only happen in a tree if the tree has still got the top of the leaves above the roots. And it will only happen, in other words, you have to have the concentrated water falling down and the less concentrated water being pulled up. So this will happen in the body if you imagine that your lungs are like the leaves and your kidneys are like the roots, because the blood that leaves the kidneys has got less concentration in it than the blood that comes to the kidneys, because the kidneys get rid of toxins, get rid of solutes and things like this. So the blood leaving the kidneys is light blood, but then the blood that leaves the heart is heavy blood. Sorry, the blood that leaves the lungs is heavy blood, because when we breathe, you can feel water vapor coming out. So every time you speak, you're losing liquid from your lungs, meaning that there's less liquid in the blood that comes out of the lungs, meaning it's higher concentration. So again, provided your lungs are higher than your kidneys, you will always be making blood flow by the very fact that you're just upright. And this is one of the reasons why meditation is best not done lying on your back. And another reason why headstand done for a long period of time is probably not good for you either. Neither is shoulder stand. And when I say long period of time, I actually do these poses nowadays for maybe a minute each, each day. But I used to practice them for 90 to 120 minutes. And I think that's a mistake. I think we were led to believe that it's good to reverse the flow of blood, to bring the blood into the head. But most people only do this whole process by tensing the lower abdomen, inhibiting the diaphragm. But there is a sense of relief when the blood flows down to the head. But actually, it's much better when you're sitting upright. And to anyone who questions this, because they think that headstand is so important and inversions are so important, I invite you to consider that if you go camping, generally a camping experience is never flat unless it's a caravan. So you either have a choice. You can either lie sideways, not a good option, or you can lie with your feet up higher, your head down lower. It doesn't feel nice. Or what do most people do? Head higher, feet lower. And when you do that, you get a better sleep. But part of the reason is because you need to, like, if your heart and your lungs are slightly higher than the kidneys, it also improves kidney function and makes you sleep better. So if we had to measure kidney function, if the kidney function of lying flat on your back was a number we'll ascribe 5, then when you're standing up, provided you relax, the number increases to 8. It's better kidney function. But when you lie with your legs slightly higher than your collarbone, your abdomen slightly higher than your lungs, so kidneys higher than lungs, then the rate of the kidney usage might drop from 5 to 3. And so you don't sleep as well, it doesn't feel as good. So it's important in our practice to acknowledge that long headstands may not be serving the purpose people think. And actually, by sitting upright, by doing meditative practices where the lungs are above the kidneys, may be a lot more beneficial. So there's one more as well, and it's called the consciousness pump. So what they've shown repeatedly is that if you think of any part of the body, the blood goes there more easily. And that means not just blood, but blood pressure. And this always makes me, and you see, quite a few studies available on this. And I did a couple myself where I had an operation. I might have told you this, but maybe not anyone listening. So I had an operation where they had to sew a muscle back onto a bone after falling off a building. And it's a very painful operation. And rather than giving me just a general anesthetic, they're putting me under and warning me, saying, because of the operation, we're also going to give you a nerve block in your arm. We're just warning you now, because when you wake up, your arm's going to be dead. You won't feel it. It'll feel like rubber to touch, and you can't move it. So we just thought we'd warn you in case you freak out when you wake up. So 5 hours later, I'm in my bed, just waking up. I'm like, Mom's dead. I instantly freak out. But then I remembered, and all night long, they were observing me post-surgically, and they came to test my pulse oximetry. Pulse oximetry measures the oxygen in the blood and to a certain extent the amount of blood itself. And so if the pulse oximetry shows a saturation level of less than 93%, it's called a medical emergency. But for me, it was like all night long, 99, 98, which is very healthy. You would never get 100 usually because the oxygen's being used. But I'm thinking, fine. Then at sunrise, a new nurse comes. She goes to test my other hand, the hand that had been numbed, the hand that had been paralyzed and operated on. And I said, no, don't test this hand because it will give a different result. And she said, no, it won't make a difference. And I went, and she did it. And it showed 92. So she's about to press the medical alarm saying, medical emergency, put him on some ventilator. I'm going, I don't want a ventilator. Just test this arm. And then I noticed that her name was Priya, and she had an Indian accent, and I thought maybe she knows yoga. So I said, do you know yoga? Yes, she says, I'm from Delhi, I'm from India. I did yoga as a child. And I said, look, I love doing yoga. I want to do an experiment. Prana goes where chitta goes. So prana, energy, goes where the consciousness goes, chitta. So let's try the experiment. I'm going to sit here and think about my right hand. And I'm going to put all my concentration on my right hand. No, I'm going to think about my left hand rather, the one that was... So it was 92, and I said, I can't move it. I can't tense it. It's just sitting there on my bed head, dead. So I'm not tensing it. I'm not going to stretch it. I can't move it. I'll just think of it. And you come back in 5 minutes, I said, I'm going, blood to go to arm, blood to go to arm, blood to go to arm. And I'm saying this in my head, but looking at my arm. And then, and the other hand is dead by the side. Then she came back, tested my arm, and it was like from 92 went to 96 in 4 minutes. So just by thinking about any part of the body, blood goes there better. And this is why people ask why what we teach, Arianna, sometimes I'm getting people to move the fingers, move the toes. But this moving the fingers and toes stimulates both the musculoskeletal reflex, and it also has musculoskeletal blood flow, musculoskeletal pump, plus also the consciousness pump. Because as you move your fingers, you're thinking fingers, you're sensing them. So as you're feeling the sensation of moving the fingers, you're actually getting blood flow. And for many years, I would walk around the cold cities I used to visit and always move my hands like this. And if that was the only exercise I was doing all day, it was very beneficial because you really feel the blood flow difference. So this is consciousness working inside your body. So they're the 12 different ways that you can use. There is another sort of method as well, and that is we felt already that if the arm is fully up in the air, blood will drain down. But if you lift in a specific way, blood is more effective. So for example, if you take one hand and just send it straight up the ceiling, blood will only flow so much. But if instead of lifting the whole arm, you lift your shoulder first, now the blood will go from the shoulder down to your neck because the shoulder is higher than the neck and down to your arm. Then if you lift up the elbow, now the blood is going from the elbow to the upper arm and from the elbow to the wrist and hand. Now if you lift up everything but the wrist, now the blood is flowing from the elbow, from the wrist down to the shoulder and from the wrist to the fingers. And if the last thing you do is lengthen the fingers and relax them, now the blood goes straight down to your arm again with gravity. But then if that point comes and you spread the fingers, so from go relax, spread the fingers, now you can pull the blood back up. And then to come down, you could follow the same thing. Come down one vertebrae at a time in your spine or in your hand, fingers, wrist, elbow, arm, shoulder. And to come back up in the other arm, you can try it briefly, just take up your second arm, just go straight up and notice the effect on blood flow, not much. But now relax, lift up your lower back, your upper back, then lift the shoulder. Relax, lift your elbow next, relax, lift your wrist next, relax, lift your fingers last, relax. And then now spread the fingers, pull the blood up, and then come down joint by joint. Shoulders, elbows, wrists, fingers, like that. And so you feel a difference in energy flow when you go joint by joint. And that to a certain extent is related to the gravitational pump and how we open and close joints. And there's a certain amount of bandha involved in that as well. So this is blood flow, and it's really, really important. And so if we can get consciousness into our body, blood flows more, and then you'll get increased prana at that point. And that increased prana really reflects increased blood pressure. And when you put increased blood pressure into any part of the body, that will physically push into your blood vessel walls, increasing the tissue density in your blood vessel walls, increasing blood pressure, but reducing heart rate. And then you've got three really cool things for your cardiovascular system. You'll have enhanced blood flow, you'll have a low heart rate, but you've got increased blood pressure. And people think increased blood pressure is dangerous, but not if you've got good blood vessels. So increased blood pressure is like having a garden hose, which comes out of a powerful tap, and strong pressure in a hose means you can clean things. But if you have no pressure in your hose, the water comes out, it's just drip, 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 or you won't clean anything. So if you want to have an effect, you need to increase pressure. And pressure is force per unit area. And so you'll get increased blood pressure just by thinking about part of the body. And that's a really important thing. This idea that consciousness, chitta, and prana, energy, go to the same place inside your body. Of course, you can get away with it for a while, but I found as an adult, and especially in my 60s, I need to use all these techniques. And then I can match, like we had a retreat today. It was lots of fun. But there's one chap who's a very strong personal trainer, and he understands some yoga, but he's just too exhausted. And I'm saying he's the fittest person in the room. Why is he not able to do as much as I could do at least?
Mm.
But he's having trouble because he said it's too much for too long. And I'm saying what you need to do is back off. But many people are still at that stage where to back off means they lose all sensation. And so by losing all sensation, you lose all interest as well. So it's very difficult to find a way of practicing in a way where you're engaged, but not stressed.
It
So what I
takes
use is,
practice to find that, because I think it was exactly the same for me when I started with the synergy. So doing
yep,
less meant feeling less. So feeling less of muscles burning and that intense stretch.
yes, yes,
And
yes.
then my body learned to recognize the other types of sensations in the body. But of course, it's a practice. It takes years to build an awareness.
I'm just getting it now. I've been at this for, especially the energy work, more working with blood flow. I've been doing for 25 years. And I feel like every day I'm discovering something new about it and getting better control, which is fantastic to be able to control the flow of blood in your body. And I certainly met certain yogis in India and people in China who could do that with their clients, control the flow of blood through their bodies.
I want to take a moment to talk about something truly special and close to the heart. Miele Strega, my own line of natural handmade body products. And as you know, I am passionate about moving with ease and feeling good in our bodies, and that extends to what we put on our skin. Each batch of Miele Strega products is crafted with love, for real, by me, using ingredients from my very own beehives and my darling bees, combined with the pure botanicals. Whether it's a soothing, luxury whipped body butter, a nourishing lip balm, or a gentle soap, everything is designed to support your body's natural rhythm, just like the practices we explore here. If you're looking for skincare that's pure, it's intentional and deeply connected and aligned to nature, check it out at mielestrega.com. And because you're a listener, I've got a special gift for you. Use the code SYNERGY10, spelled with Y and Y, for 10% off your first order. Now, back to our conversation.
Talking about control, I'm thinking, let's go and talk about Ujjayi breathing that
Oh, yeah.
happens kind of in the throat. You want to constrict the throat so that, well, as a result, there is that sound that makes, but it's almost like that idea of controlling through constricting. So I would like you to speak into what is Ujjayi, what are the effects on the body, and if there is, on the other hand, a way to control but as expanding, not just controlling by restricting, controlling by expanding.
By what? Expanding?
So I want to control the breath, and just by
Yes, yes.
making smaller, can I relax and still be aware?
Yes, yes. Okay, so part of the purpose of Ujjayi pranayama is to regulate the control of breath coming out of your lungs. So if you were to expand the chest and then just let the air out, air comes out quickly. If you open your mouth, if you inhale and keep the mouth closed and exhale, air comes out slow because the nose is not as big as the mouth. But if you did it with, say, one nose and then relax, let the air out, it's going to take twice as long. But if you want to make it even more, taking longer for the out breath to happen, then you constrict the base of the throat. And you can do it by bringing your head down, neck back, and then just constricting the throat. And then when you breathe in, it sounds like a Darth Vader on acid. It sounds, if you do a lot. But it's not a good thing to do to make it gross. So if you make it sound so loud other people can hear it, the air is coming out too quickly. And then you have the risks of hyperventilation. So what you want is to let the air out go so slowly out that no one can hear it, not even yourself. And so I invite those people who wish to try it. It took me a while. I mean, now comfortably I can breathe in for 2 minutes, breathe out for 2 minutes separately. So experiment. Take a breath in, keep your mouth closed, and then slowly let the air out. And you make the very, very subtlest sound. No one else should hear it. You're gently constricting the base of the throat. And as you make it softer and quieter, the amount of air coming out is less. So if you want to extend your breath, this is how you extend it. But let me invite you to, everyone listening, take a breath in and then make a loud humming sound. As loud as you can, keep humming, how loud as you can, keep humming, loud as you can, keep humming, and then release. Now, test the same humming sound with your thumbs or fingers in the ear. You might not be able to do it with your headphones. So fingers close the ear, then breathe in and hum, and then release. And recognize it's much louder. Why? Because you've turned your ears on the inside. Now you're listening from the inside. So you can do this, make your inside hearing switch on and your outside hearing switch off. And so what I do is I constrict the throat gently, listen from the inside, and then let the air out. And I can still hear that, but not necessarily other people would. Eventually, you make it so, yes, you make it so the humming is quiet and less in the upper face, if you like, and more very gently in the throat and tongue. But invariably, you're going to get told that you need to breathe more obviously. And so what many people will do is actually add to that, and they start regulating the chest and expansion. So if I want to breathe in and let the air out, and I open my mouth, 1 second, the air goes out. Let the air out through my nose, 3 or 4 seconds. Let the air out through one nose, 6 or 7 seconds. That's my open nose. I've been kicked in the face so many times, my nose is broken. So breathe in, block through your second side. That was 12 seconds. And I let the air out passively. There's still air in the end of my lungs. You could add to that and use the soft transverse abdominis muscles and push more air out using the transverse abdominis, like you see sideways. I go and draw my lower abdomen in, but this lower abdomen drawing in is not hard. And so it's a soft exhalation, but by doing this then, you can actually control how much the air comes in or out. The more you keep the expansion, the slower the air comes out, the less you have to tighten the throat. The more vigorously you tighten the compression, then the more you have to tighten the throat to prevent the air coming too quickly. But the ideal balance is you actually let the air out so slowly. So I inhale, expand everything, and then exhale so slowly. But I'm doing it not by constricting the throat, but by controlling the descent of the chest and letting the balloon deflate very, very gently. So it's interesting how it works. But really the most important thing to say is breathing should not be loud. Otherwise, it's not wrong, but you need to compensate for it afterwards by breathing a lot less. And so if I do loud, deep breathing like that, raspy breathing like that, at the end of it, then I'm going to consciously hold my breath for a while or let myself go automatically into a place of breath suspension where I'm hardly breathing at all. So it's normal to have that happen afterwards.
Which means that all the techniques that now I think are quite popular with breath work, where we go and breathe more, which means that it's more often, so a quicker pace of breathing, but also more up in the chest should be balanced with breath retention. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the reality, if you measure what we call minute ventilation is the amount of air coming into your body every minute. And that means you have to measure the number of breaths per minute and the average volume per breath. So your minute ventilation is a multiplication of number of breaths per minute times volume of breath. And on average, it's about 5 liters every minute. But by coincidence, 5 liters of air is also the amount of air that you push into your lungs, which means that if every minute you naturally breathe 5 liters, then if you're going to do better than natural breathing, which could be supernatural breathing, which is, an element of pranayama, then don't breathe more, breathe less. So what happens when many people are doing this, what I call the Darth Vader breath, the version of Ujjayi they call Darth Vader, breathe in, and then make the sound. Breathe in, still making the sound. Invariably, you've breathed much more air than you normally need to eat, to have. And so that increase in air going in and out of you, even though they're slow breaths, they're full breaths. And if you've taken a full lung, even if it took 10 seconds to breathe in fully and 10 seconds to breathe out fully to fill the lungs, then by the end of 1 minute, you've done 3 full sets of lungs, meaning instead of doing the average 5 liters of air per minute that normal adults need to live on, they're taking actually 15. They're being greedy and drinking as much air or eating as much air or breathing as much air as 3 people. And sometimes it's more. And so this air which we absorb is actually a type of poison mostly. And so oxygen can be quite poisoning in the body. But carbon dioxide has little bad effects. It's got quite a few good effects. And so I call carbon dioxide it's like this, it's the prana muscle. It's the prana element rather. So oxygen is important, but we can't measure it. We don't do much with it inside our body initially. But carbon dioxide mediates its function. So when you breathe less, which can be as simple as just not trying to breathe more, or as simple as doing a controlled pause like we did at the start of the session, normal breath in, passive breath out, stop breathing, that can be really useful to increase carbon dioxide, and that will also dilate blood vessels. And so you get this movement and encouragement of what I call good energy and loving information, healthy blood flow with a lower heart rate. And all you're doing is breathing less by breathing normally. And what you'll also notice, if you do the complete, very slow breath in, slow breath out, that will pump the diaphragm. And also if you're doing raise the heels up and down, bend the knees a bit, flex at your hips, extend the hips, that will affect the diaphragm as well. The 2 most important things with breathing are to restore natural breath, especially at rest and in movement, until you get to a point when you have to brace yourself because you're doing something dangerous. And then the rest of the time then you're breathing minimally, minimally, invisibly, inaudibly, and that will give you a really good result in pranayama. But by breathing more than normal, you actually get the wrong result, the bad result.
So breathing less, that means the breaths that are less deep.
It could be,
exactly.
when we say, it's good to clarify deep breathing. Many people, if you say take a deep breath in, their chest will expand, whereas deep actually is deep in your body. So a deep breath, you should feel your pelvic floor, your lower abdomen, your lower back expand. That's a deep breath, but it's not what most people think. Deep breath, chest expand, that's a shallow breath up here. So what we want is breathing which is less amount than normal, less air per minute, and that could mean less breaths per minute or smaller breaths per minute. But the best is hardly any breath, hardly any sighs in each breath. And when that happens, then you build up carbon dioxide, which will promote blood flow to the brain, hyposensitivity of the nerves, so the nerves relax a bit more. And it also encourages the flow of oxygen into your cells. To be able to, carbon dioxide is the signal that tells oxyhemoglobin, the red pigment in the blood that carries the oxygen. Carbon dioxide tells the oxyhemoglobin effectively, now get rid of this oxygen, put it in the cell. That's when the cell secretes its carbon dioxide then. And what you want is to build up these levels of carbon dioxide, ideally in a healthy person. So that's very, very good if you can do that. But the Ujjayi pranayama, unfortunately, makes you breathe more than 1 full breath a minute. So my point I was going to make was, if it's that loud, you're probably doing a full breath in, full breath out in 6 seconds. Meaning you're doing 10 full breaths a minute at that pace, which many people do and practice. And it leads to this very dysfunctional state because you're actually breathing 3 times as much as the normal amount of 5 liters per minute. You'll be breathing 15 liters per minute, or per session rather, 15 liters, which is, 3 times as much air as you need. So what we want is to not breathe more, but breathe less. And if you can do that while still controlling the muscles of breathing, you get a good result. So that's why I say most of the time the breath work I'm doing is not even breathing, it's just expanding and contracting the back. I expand the front. I pull in the lower abdomen, round out the lower back, push in the upper back, chest and abdomen in. So I'm expanding and contracting my chest. And I can do it while breathing, without breathing, but the best results come when you do effectively what in Indian yoga they call kriya. And that includes learning how to roll the abdomen from one side to the next, up and down, side to side. These are called, in some ways, Kapalabhati Kriya and Nauli Kriya. But often people think Kapalabhati is about breathe more, and Nauli Kriya is about not breathing at all. It's actually independent to the breath when you learn to control these muscles. It doesn't matter whether you breathe or not, but you can do it while having the air half in your lungs, provided you can control your abdomen. And this is a lot less threatening because this modern push for breath work, where people hyperventilate, breathe more than normal, that's leading to many people catharting, having fits, getting sick, getting emotionally, spaced out, depressed, etc. I don't think it's something you want to mess with unless you're a therapist who knows exactly what they're doing. They've experimented on their own body, and then they get a grant to do it one-on-one. But to deal with a big group and trying to write something with a big group is very, very hard, especially when everyone is not believing what you're saying.
I can share an episode that I might have shared before, but many years ago, I went to a retreat, a midsummer retreat here in Sweden. And there was this group experience where we all lay down on the floor and then we started
Yes, yes, yes.
so breathing in and out very fast for I don't know how many minutes.
Five
And
minutes probably, yeah.
after a while, I started feeling, fingers and toes tingling, the
Tetanus,
jaw
yeah,
starting
yeah,
tensing,
yeah,
the
yeah.
teeth, I started being cold and shivering, and really, I think maybe hallucinating. And uh, after that, I thought I had lived a, like you said, like cathartic experience. Wow, I met my spirit animal. This was
Yes,
amazing. But then when
yes.
I came to Bali and studied with you, and we were talking about these things, I realized this is what happened. It was not like a outer body experience. I simply triggered some stress responses in my body. And what would happen
Yes,
is that as a group, we were not really told what was going to happen, like on a physiological level, like preparing. And I do not recall them balancing out with some breath retention after the. So it was just a very, very interesting case of communication, like on what was going on, really.
I think that this sort of practice is not wrong, but I don't think it gives the benefits to the physiology of the body. It
Mm,
might give some limited mental benefits,
all
but
right.
I think what you're doing is you're inviting the possibility of cancer because you're
Ah,
actually causing the like cancer thrives in the absence of oxygen and the presence of low levels of CO2. For normal healthy cells, they thrive in the absence of oxygen and they thrive in the presence of CO2. Normal cells do much better. But the more you breathe, the less oxygen goes to your cells, the less CO2 builds up.
mm,
So a healthy natural breathing pattern is much better to prevent cancer than an intense overbreathing pattern.
mm. That's a very interesting notion. Could you, because we're going to wrap up soon, is there like a test that our listeners can do to self-evaluate how their breath is and where it's happening in the body?
Yeah, yeah, there's a few you can do. One simple one we call a controlled pause. Some people call it the Bolt test. And so what we can do is I'm going to ask you to take a normal breath in, normal breath out, and stop breathing and relax as much as you can. And when you need to breathe, then you count how long it takes. So, but you don't force the breath in or out, no preparation breaths, just restore natural breathing. How? Be in a comfortable position, relax fingers, shoulders, neck, relax your pelvic floor, relax your abdomen, relax your face. And allow a little bit of an expansion, allowing a bit of air in, a little bit of contraction, allow air out, and make just a normal little breath in and a passive breath out. Another normal breath in, pause, passive breath out, and now hold the breath. So hold the breath as long as you can or until I say. And as you're holding the breath, how long can you hold the breath for? Some people can only hold the breath 10 seconds. That's a sign of sickness. Normal people can usually hold for 20 or 30 seconds minimum, but you'll find you have superior health if you can hold for more than 1 minute. So now you've been going about 30 seconds. So what you can learn in these moments is, can you relax a bit? Like you've seen us relax, sometimes move your fingers, move your shoulders, move your neck, move the pelvic floor. And these movements help you relax. And so the idea is to really just, as you relax more, blood flows more easily through the body. You don't get the urge to breathe so much. Because the presence of CO2 after a while will make you want to breathe. It triggers the diaphragm to spasm. So when you do a normal thing like that, is normal breath in, normal breath out, stop breathing. After about 20 or 30 seconds, the diaphragm says, I can feel carbon dioxide. You must breathe. You must breathe. So if that feeling of needing to breathe happens in 15 seconds, I'd say you need to address your breathing. If it takes 45 seconds more, I'd say you're reasonably healthy. That's a good test, I think. And
Thank you.
usually I can do about a minute and a half comfortably without gulping the air, without feeling tension. Now, of course, if you breathe more than normal first, deep, full breath in, deep, full breath out, and you do that a few times, then you take a normal breath in and a passive breath out. You'll hold your breath a lot longer because the body can't sense the absence of oxygen. It only senses the presence of CO2. So although we had some CO2 in the first experiment, carbon dioxide, in the second experiment, there's almost none because you've blown it off, and you can actually prepare someone like this in advance. And then you see how with no CO2, you get no blood flow at all. It's quite amazing.
Thank you, Simon, for that. I know that when one comes and studies with you in person, you go through all these notions. But for somebody who wants to learn more about this online, living somewhere else in the world, I know that there is a course about breathing and pranayama in your online platform. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I was actually going to say that my course has these tests, like I'm giving you. Another one is, how long can you breathe in for? How long can you breathe out for? So, it took me a while, but as I practiced, I found I could inhale for 2 minutes, exhale for 2 minutes. And some people will have trouble doing either one. But I would recommend those 3 tests, and all those things you find on my online courses, which you can go to simonborgolivier.com or healthhappinesslongevity.co. And I have courses on the introductory breath work, introductory breath control. And then also the next one is called intermediate to advanced breath control. And I have a whole bunch of moving exercises which regulate breath flow through the body. And the most important way to regulate breathing through the body is to not think of breath, but rather learn how to expand and contract. And I have this thing we call the ether cycle, where we do it in 4 parts. So first, round out and expand lower back, upper back, keep it expanded, then lift the chest and the abdomen. And then, so you go expand the back, then expand the front, and then draw the lower abdomen in, round out lower back, pushing upper back, chest and abdomen in. So you're sequentially, in a wave-like fashion, expanding and contracting your trunk. And so I'm doing
You
that.
make the breath
Often,
happen.
yes, yeah, right. Rather than think breathe in, breathe out, think expand, allow air in, contract, allow air out, which means you're not forcing more than you need, and you're feeling your muscles are breathing, effectively your trunk and your whole body is breathing for you, and it tends to be invisible, inaudible, minimal breathing, and it's very, very powerful practice. So that's what we call the 5-dimensional flow practice usually.
Beautiful. This was so very insightful, Simon. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
I think that the people who are listening will find a lot of food for thoughts and self exploration, like noticing their own patterns of breathing, of movements, and how we approach breathing. Do I think, oh, just breathe in, breathe out, or can I think move so that the body makes the breath happen for you, basically?
I think we sit enough on chairs. I think it's better we move. And seated practices like seated breathing practices and seated meditation are not as good for the modern body as dynamic practices. Moving meditation and breath work, which happens naturally as your body moves. The simplest being if you stand with your knees slightly bent and the hips a little bit more less tense and less stretched. Bend the knees, go down, maybe go down on your toes, shift the weight back, come up on your heels, going down and up. And whenever you go up and down, that will cause the psoas muscle to lengthen and contract a bit. And so as you extend the hips and lift the hips up away from the floor more, and the front of the hips open up, that causes your diaphragm to move down and you make an inhale. When your hips flex more and extend less, that causes the diaphragm to move up and makes you exhale. So moving your hips up makes inhale, moving hips down makes exhale. And you don't have to think breathe in, breathe out. You're causing a natural inward expansion by pulling the diaphragm down using your hip flexors, which is very interesting. It means you can teach people how to regulate blood flow, and that particular one also regulates heart rate variability. So it's not like you're going to get someone doing, being in a squat. So I'll demonstrate a little bit. So you stand up, then you bend the knees down on your toes, come up on the heels, and that movement is stimulating the front of the hips and the psoas muscle, which pulls on the diaphragm. So as I'm coming up, my heart rate changes in the beat of the speed. Like I was showing how when we felt the pulse, the heart rate's changing in speed. If I come up like this, it's pulling my diaphragm down. And then when I go down, it pushes the diaphragm up. So as I'm measuring heart rate, in the middle, I'm doing 65 beats per minute, up fully 75 beats per minute, then down again 65 beats a minute, 55, 45. This simple exercise of going up and down smoothly and relaxed actually makes most people's heart rate vary from 45 beats per minute to 75 beats per minute in a way which doesn't cause stress, but it does seem to improve immune function, digestive function, reproductive function in a very powerful way. So rather than teaching breathing seated, I think it's much better for us to learn how to get the body to move in a meditative way and make the breath happen as a result of the controlled movements we make of our body.
Which is, again, a reconducting to that idea that it's all connected. These are overlapping systems, so working together and really not being so divided as we thought.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's, you get a better result if you make your body breathe as a result of your movements. And it's not wrong, of course, to do seated pranayama in what they call the classical way. But by learning how to move your body to control the breath, you're just that much more capable of breathing in a seated static position and doing the complex breath control things that traditional Indian yoga requires. And so, for example, even for most people, breathing in the chest without tightening their abdomen is very difficult. But the more you practice these 5-dimensional flow movements that we're teaching, the more you're learning how to control your trunk and your muscles of breathing in general. And then you can control your blood wherever it wants to go in the body.
Powerful. And then we go to the supernatural, being a supernatural beings.
I always say, recognize we're normal people living in an unnatural world, and recognize that the 3rd chapter of the Sutras of Patanjali talks about doing supernatural powers, but we can't aspire to get supernatural until we make the first step, go from a normal life to a natural life, and I'm happy to stay there. But if you want to take the next step, go then to supernatural. But you can't reach supernatural until you first restore natural breathing.
Thank you, Simon, for this hour together. It was, I'm sure that the listener will really enjoy this conversation. Thank you for your time. I will see you next week.
I look forward to seeing you next week. That'd be fun. Let's make the same time we can check. Thank you very much for your kindness, your love, your receptivity, and your wonderful questioning, because you help me understand things better. It's the middle of the night for me now. I've been up for 20 hours. I've got to go to sleep in the morning.
Then we say good night.
Good night. Thank you very, very much.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Synergy Podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something within you, a new way of thinking, feeling, or moving. If you love this episode, let me know. Share it, leave a review, or connect with me on Instagram at mini-serie. And if you're ready to go deeper, check out my yoga offerings, come to a yoga class at the studio, and check out my handmade natural body products at mini-serie.com. Remember, your body is yours, your pleasure is yours, and living pain-free is possible. Until next time, move with ease and live with joy.